Chapter 14, we talk about consumption to satisfaction. And if we look at the consumer value framework, we can see where this consumption process directly leads to perceptions of value, which may include utilitarian and hedonic value. And based upon the value that a consumer perceives from that particular consumption process, will influence the overall relationship quality relating to customer satisfaction or dissatisfaction, switching behavior. Obviously, if there's higher dissatisfaction, switching behavior is more likely, which also will result in customer share as well as customer commitment. So the things that are central within this consumer value framework become critical, and as you've examined and we've discussed previously, internal influences as well as external influences can influence the perception in terms of the desire, the creation of the needs, how those wants are going to be fulfilled, and actually exploring that exchange process and looking at those particular cost benefits and the reactions that result. So in looking at this basic consumption process, what we're talking about is once the actual exchange has occurred, looking at what are the elements that comprise the cost and benefits? What is it that the consumer is looking to gain from engaging in that particular exchange? And based upon their assessment of those costs and benefits, a reaction will occur, which will include an assessment of that particular value. Also note that the consumption process can include time and goods, services, or ideas, and these can also include experiences. When we look at the actual consumption process, one thing to note is within this particular exchange, are we talking about a durable good? And by that, not necessarily a physical product always, but what is the period of time that that experience is occurring? So in the event of, if we think about a pet, many people will say, oh, looking for a lifelong pet, that could entail years, versus in terms of us chewing a piece of gum, that could entail literally a consumption process that lasts for a few minutes. Based upon that consumption process, the degree of satisfaction is assessed, and from that degree of satisfaction, value, a perception of value is created. Was that a good consumption process? And if the benefits exceed the cost, then there is a positive value that results from that. And over a repeated consumption process, engaging with that particular product, service, activity, idea, or experience, loyalty can begin to develop. And here are just a couple of examples. The American Consumer Satisfaction Index is a score, an index that's tabulated across a lot of different industries and services. If you go to the University of Michigan website, you can find examples of current companies that are being evaluated. Their score is done by industry, by services, by a variety of different areas. And this is a way that companies gauge how they're performing compared to their peers, and this can also be an indicator potentially of people's level, not only people's level of satisfaction, their loyalty, they're likely to remain a customer, as well as areas that may need attention. When we look at these theories of post-consumption reactions, these are things that help us assess and potentially predict what are going to influence people's level of satisfaction. And again, the higher the satisfaction, the greater the perception of value. One theory that you should be familiar with is the basic disconfirmation process. And quite simply, what this means is that the role of satisfaction, or the outcome of satisfaction, will be influenced by one's expectations compared to the actual performance perceptions. So, and if the expectations are higher than the actual perceptions, then a negative disconfirmation will occur, versus if the performance perceptions exceed those particular expectations, then positive satisfaction is likely. So the role of expectations becomes absolutely key critical in terms of what's going to influence one's level of satisfaction. Another theory is equity theory, and this is by the case in which consumers will evaluate their inputs versus their outputs, and if they believe that the outputs exceed, or their outcomes exceed what they had to put into it, then positive value and therefore satisfaction will be achieved.